Welcome. My name is Jamila, and I will be your Zoom host for today's session. You are joining us for the one-day summit healing trauma with EMDR and applied neuroscience. So we're so grateful to have you here. The session we're diving into is called EMDR and the Science of Embodiment, an integrative approach to healing trauma with the amazing Stacy Ruse. And with that, let me go ahead and introduce our amazing facilitator for today. We have Stacy Ruse, who is a trauma expert and owner of Aglow Counseling, where she offers global training and consultation services using IFS, EMDR, transpersonal, and yoga therapies. Her warm approach, while deeply rooted in trauma-informed methodologies, is also characterized by a transpersonal twist that transcends the boundaries of traditional therapy. She is an IFS Institute approved consultant, evergreen EMDR consultant, and a registered yoga teacher. With that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Stacy. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Jamelia.
Mhm.
Here, I want to say I'm coming from the lands and the ancestral lands of the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Ute tribes here in Longmont, Colorado. So I am in Colorado, and yes, it is snowy and cold today. So I have a nice sweater on and a blanket, and yeah, everyone just bring your comfort. I know we have I have a ton of information in here. So I put the slides in there for you. So that way, if we don't get to, due to time, really get to like the protocol or, deepening, it's on there for you. So I put some step-by-step instructions. So if you are using this with clients, you can do that and you can print it out. You can bring it with you. I also just want to take a moment to just recognize the suffering and what's happening in the world. And also the blessings, and as Deb Dina says, the glimmers, right? That there is so much going on in this world around us. So just a little beautiful candle for all of us and just holding space for us as we look at the somatic and embodiment. And then we all just come to a conscious breath. Maybe even bringing our energy into our bodies as best we can as we join in and take in a lot of didactic information, and we'll do some short practices in our time today. So let's look at that integration: neuroscience, EMDR, and somatic therapies. The embodiment, the science of embodiment focused EMDR therapy. So integrating that within our EMDR, within our trauma focus. And let's even just start with like, what are some shared goals that we would see in somatic therapies, trauma-informed therapy, as well as EMDR? Looking at the embodied experiences and the restoring of trust in the self energy, or in that wisdom, the innate wisdom of the body, the mind, the spirit that's within each of us, all of us, to reduce the emotional intensity that's associated with trauma or wounding, or even just our experiences. I'm a trauma therapist, so sometimes I get biased. Not everything is trauma, but certainly the wounds, the tensions, the trauma that we hold in our body and our energies. Then we're going to look at transforming negative beliefs into more adaptive beliefs, right? And so cognitively, many of us have done that. I always like to say, like when I'm working with clients or in, trainings, consultees, whatever that is, that I wouldn't even have a job if all we had to say was, I know that, right? I can just connect to that. It's not that simple for us as humans. And so we want to transform them from the body from the energy, right? Deep down at the core, if we have a belief that limits us, how do we transform it into a more useful and more adaptive belief? So we're looking at that. And by integrating these, we can deepen that experience. We're going to look at releasing the charges from the traumatic experiences and from the nervous system. So they're nervous system charges that get held in our body, our mind, and our energy centers. And we honor all perspectives, cultures, legacy burdens, cultural burdens, and world views. And we're looking to achieve more balance, harmony, and wholeness for ourselves, for our clients, and for the world. So just a reminder of the AIP model, and that we are coming from this framework that pathology occurs when the trauma gets disrupted, and it gets disrupted from its natural adaptive processing, which we all have the intelligence for. But when things come and they're too overwhelming, they're too fast, they're too soon, or we are not held in an environment that allows us to complete the processing, that information gets stored dysfunctionally. And that's in our physiological, neurobiological, as well as the mind, body, brains, energies. So then the present triggers, something that triggers us in the moment, then reactivates the stored maladaptive information from the past, and it comes up in the present in emotions, sensations, perceptions, beliefs. They're stored without the adaptive information. So we're helping to connect to the adaptive information, the learning that is needed for that more profound resolution. And when these things are left unprocessed, when they're left fragmented and they're left dissociated, that's the dysfunctional information. So we want to access that so we can complete the processing, the memory reconciliation. And when they're left that way, unprocessed, they come up often intrusively, right? Unwanted in symptoms, behaviors, beliefs, suffering. That continues to reinforce and strengthen the neural networks. So let's look at the stress cycle, just to kind of build on this as we go. If we're looking at the natural traumatic stress response, we're looking at that we face something overwhelming, distressing, traumatic. And then, of course, our body reacts, right? And hormones go out, signals go out into the body. And those signals say mobilize, right? Initially, mobilize. And that might be to feel, to move, to run, to protect, to tremble, to shake. And then we're able to come back to balance, to homeostasis, right? So we once we're out of that, if there's any threat or perceived threat, we're able to come in and regulate. So yeah, we go up, but then we're able to start coming down and regulating, and can come into the more parasympathetic immobilization, and we can rejuvenate and rest from that. So whether we're using that just to work or to live, as well as in threat, when we're trying to get away, fight, run, or other states that come in. So that's the natural traumatic stress response. You see this in all mammals, you see this in all peoples, right? In the human expression. But then we have the incomplete traumatic stress response. So what we're talking about when we say this dysfunctional, these fragmented, these frozen in states. Similarly, we have some kind of overwhelmed distress trauma. Again, our body starts reacting, sending out the hormones and the signals. But then we get a thwarted mobilization experience. It's too overwhelming. We don't have support. It's too much. It's too fast, whatever that is. And it gets thwarted. So we don't get the completed experience of being able to feel, to cry, to move, to leave, to run, to protect ourselves, to tremble, to shake it out, right? And so then it equals and becomes the stuck threat response. So the adaptive information becomes really important to reconnect to the adaptive information when that happens and that's left unresolved in our experiences. So we want to do processing that leads to that connection, right? To what the adaptive information. And when we do that, when we start connecting to that, lessons are learned in a deep and meaningful and purposeful way, right? And we get helpful shifts. We discharge the sensations from the nervous system reactions that got frozen in, and we become resilient. We can feel into states of resiliency. How does this affect EMDR processing? Memory networks stored associated memories together in clusters. So we can access the thwarted, disrupted information and re-engage the adaptive information processing so that can start back up, and so that the natural intelligence that we all have, we can connect to that in a safe and supported environment. Adaptive changes then occur in the early patterns of affect, emotion, behavior, cognitions, beliefs, and self-identity, and how we interpret and connect to the world and the environment around us. So essentially, when we're looking at this somatic and we're looking at the EMDR and we're looking at the neuroscience, the somatic focused EMDR is essentially a bottom-up approach. Now, top-down is still really important, and often we use that as well. But when we're looking at rooting into the neuroscience, we're looking at that bottom-up approach. And what does that mean? That we're going to engage the whole brain, and we're going to engage the head, the heart, and the gut brains. We're going to look at where trauma is frozen in trauma time. Non-verbal, implicit imagery, memories, and the fragments of that, which often show up as sensations in somatic experiencing, also imagery and metaphor. The nervous system, we want the nervous system to get a felt sense of feeling safer now in the present moment. And we're bringing the unconscious into awareness. So awareness brings healing. Realization. What's the opposite of dissociation? Realization. It heals trauma for where it lives, from where it's at the root, right? Working on those core root issues rather than just the symptoms. And it walks up the three brains in the nervous system, releasing the charges and constraints, those tensions and somatic experiences that we often feel in our body, our muscles, our organs, right? And these constraints from the nervous system reactions that are frozen in. And really, we're looking at this from the standpoint as if it no longer serves us, right? So if that's true, then it's releasing that. So let's look at what the three brains. If we look at it, that these centers, the head, the heart, and the gut are actually, and they all communicate as brains, there's interconnectivity. And there's electric magnetic activity and rhythms that occur. And a lot of that does happen with the vagal nerve. But we look at the head brain and we see brain structures, cognition, perception, language, and communication, really big aspects of our experiences, right? Over 100 billion neurons, trillions of synapses that are communicating, And this is a brain center that we process, we learn, and we remember. So through these synapses and electrical impulses and hormones, as we send those signals, all these hormones, it communicates directly and bidirectionally with our nervous system. And then we look at the heart brain. This aligns mind, heart, body, and emotions. And if you want to learn more about that, the Heart Math Institute is a really, really beautiful science and research on that. And of course, there's others as well. So please share in the chat if you have others in your awareness with the community, and really understanding, because I feel like, at least from my perception, we're coming from thousands of years or 1,000 years maybe of really heavily being in the head brain. And we're starting to move the consciousness more to the heart brain. So this is really becoming fundamental in our work and in our lives, really. And the head brain is still really important, but integrating it and thinking of the heart is it is the center, right? It comes in the center. So this is really important, and it aligns our mind, our heart, body, and emotions. It has the intuitive intelligence. And there's a lot of significance and research going on the global well-being, personal and social, and how the heart plays into this. There's 60 times more electrical activity than the head brain, and 100 times greater magnetic field than any other center of the body. There's 40,000 plus neurons that work similarly to a brain. And it also processes, learns, remembers, and it communicates with the nervous system and the vagal nerve or vagus nerve. It sends more messages to the brain. So there's actually, if Stephen Porges says there's 80% communication that comes up either from the gut and or the heart to the head brain, and about 20% that goes down. But it is bidirectional. And then we have the gut brain, the enteric brain. And we know that this is huge, and there's been a lot of research that's been going on in the last 20 years of the connections with the gut. And if any of us have probably felt that, all those gut experiences and whatnot, I know I have. As I laugh, I'm like, oh yes, yes, gut. The gut is interrelated. Hormones, metabolism, blood pressure. It processes information as you sleep. The walls of the digestive tract, which is actually really large and significant, and also runs along the esophagus and to the rectum. And it's communicating. It has its own intelligence. It's amazing. 100 million neurons in our gut. Processes, learns, remembers. So all three brains process, learn, and remember. And 95% of our body's serotonin, as well as other important hormones, come from the gut. And it communicates again directly with the nervous system, and it sends more messages to the brain, the head brain. So what are we looking at? We're looking at coherence equals resiliency plus that self energy. And self is not located to the heart, but the heart is often a gateway for us to really tap into our truer self, to our wisdom, to the intelligence. And that equals improved regulation, improved regulation. So in putting that social engagement and some of that polyvagal and I definitely recommend learning more on the polyvagal, Ariel Schwartz's work, Deb Dana's work, Polyvagal Institute, as well as many others. And I'm sure other presenters today are also bringing that in if you're new to that information. But let's do a little image of this. When our ventral vagal, which comes from the vagus nerve, and it's the more evolved social engagement and calming and alert, present aspect of our nervous system, when that is combined with our sympathetic, We actually can feel states of joy, playfulness, creativity, curiosity. We're alert and active, but we also feel calm and connect. We can connect socially. When ventral vagal response is paired with a parasympathetic autonomic nervous system response, we can rest, we can feel rested, we can digest properly, we can rejuvenate, we can reflect on things, we can contemplate, and we can gain and connect to insight and clarity, or a sense of knowing that really comes from our heart and our gut brains. And what IFS calls self-energy, what you may call a state of being, wisdom, right? Observing. We can find and tap into these states of compassion, calmness, connectedness, curiosity, creativity, clarity, confidence, and courage. So we're going for that, right? We're going for that gently. And these experiences, it's all interrelated. So if we look at the psycho-neuro-endocrine immune system, and we look at the three brains, the vagal nerve and other nerves, right, throughout, and how that interrelates with actually all of our systems, but certainly our nervous system, our endocrine system, and our immune system. It's all communicating. It's all related: body, mind, spirit. So what are the active components that we're looking at? Reprocessing so that we can gain and embody, and we're going to move into more somatic. How do we embody new learning? And we know that we're actually malleable, right? There's plasticity in our gene expression, in our neuro diversity in biology, in our bodies. So we know that change can happen. And what are we looking at? We're looking at accessing or lighting up the frozen dysfunctional memory or expressions, emotional expressions. We want to access, light up, stimulate, right? Or light up, again, kind of that light up language, the information processing system, so we can keep it dynamic, flowing, and moving, and then into the move, right? Moving the information to more adaptive, appropriate, positive resolution. So we access, stimulate, move. This is what equals and comes to memory reconciliation can occur. So let's just look at the bilateral stimulation component of EMDR therapy, which is also a component of somatic therapy. How many movements in somatic therapy, in yoga therapy, in ancient wisdom, it's not just EMDR, right? And actually, in many other physical therapy, occupational therapy. I know when my son was in speech therapy at a really young age, they had him cross over doing things to help. So bilateral stimulation is actually used in many, many modalities. But of course, it's used in EMDR therapy, and it's a key component often. And whether it's through eye movements, tapping, right, sounds, music, bilateral or binaural music, light bars, right, all these different ways. What is it doing? Well, one of the mechanisms, and there's many, and I don't have the time today to go into all of those, right? But there's actually many different mechanisms and hypotheses for that. But one is that correlation of waking up the whole head brain and then crossing over the hemispheres of the brain so you can use the whole brain. which then communicates to the nervous system, which then communicates to the three brains and brings in the body, mind, heart, so that we can have integration. And that is central to somatic-based EMDR therapy. That we're actually connecting all of these things as best as we can. And remember, for some clients, this is going to take time. So we do that with patience. We do this with persistence, gentleness, compassion, and patience. But it becomes really important, the attunement, the compassion, and the awareness, because those are healing states. And we want to bring those into the somatic experience. And we start with us. We come attuned. We hold compassion, and we help build awareness. Where attention goes, energy flows. James Redfield, right? There's many research mechanism hypotheses on how BLS works. Likely, it's honestly probably a combination of all of them and more that we don't understand yet. I know I get excited about that yet, because it's moving fast. The research, the knowledge is moving really fast, and we're continuously learning more and more about how these experiences can help us integrate, heal, embody, connect. And that's really, really beautiful, because the world needs it. We all need it, right? At some level. And so this is really beautiful, like to bring in more and more. And to quote Ariel Schwartz, who I love her work, and hopefully you're all engaging and watching hers as well. For unexplained chronic pain and somatic symptoms, it may be better understood as being maladaptively maintained by neuromuscular pathways that have been repeatedly myelinated, so they tend to repeat on autopilot. Such an amazing quote, right, of the experience. And so those pathways, we're going to get in and intentionally, with care and gentleness, disrupt them so we can build new neural pathways that are more adaptive. So let's look at the somatic experiences. Unexplained pain anywhere, headaches, which can be many things. So always looking at and ruling out and maybe even bringing in other types of healers, doctors, right? But headaches, stomach aches, again, mostly unexplained, not having an exact, like, oh, this is where this is coming from, right? Unexplained seizures, faint experiences, fibromyalgia, and autoimmune disorders. We're going to see a lot of this, right? Because of all that interconnectedness. And of course, if these things are happening, like I said, also holding space and having a team, and if there are medical explanations, also having doctors or whatnot that may be needed, but understanding that these experiences come up somatically and are often intertwined with our wounding, our trauma, our parts, our experiences. We're going to see anxiety reactions with physical sensations. When that's allowed, there could be blocking to that, but when that's thwarted, right, when that's allowed to come through, we may see the shaking, the trembling, the heart palpitations, the crying, the release of energy through our limbs, our arms, our hands, the top of our head, heat coming up and out, the legs, the feet, and any other sensations. Muscle tension, twitching, muscles doing things, reorganizing, a desire to move in certain ways, anywhere in the body. a sense of feeling paralyzed, not being able to move, act, or speak, say something, right? We see that a lot. Exhaustion, confusion, sadness, anxiety, agitation, numbness, all states and types of dissociation or disconnection, physical arousal, blunted affect, and or pain. So what becomes really important and is a really crucial aspect to any type of trauma treatment is a sense of safe enough. I always say safe enough, right? Safe enough in the present moment. Bringing in a sense, am I relatively safe enough in this moment? And can I bring that into my embodiment? Can my nervous system recognize it? Can my body and my mind recognize the sense of being safe enough in this moment? And that can bring in healing. So it brings that foundation, that sacred space of safe enough in the moment. It reduces hypo or hyper arousal, sympathetic states. It builds more trust in the environment, in the connection, the therapeutic relationship. It enhances resiliency. It helps us regulate our emotions. It integrates and helps us move through traumatic memories. And it doesn't have to be that we remember. If there isn't a remembering, it could just be the fragmented experiences get to integrate and move through. So those emotional experiences that are related to past memories and experiences, it prevents the re-traumatization. So we're not reliving it, we're reprocessing it without being re-traumatized, and it empowers the client. So these are techniques in themselves to understand the sensing into, and this brings us into how can we integrate this in our EMDR therapy and our somatic. This brings us into the somatic. So we have neuroception. The autonomic nervous system, ANS, is always autonomically determining like these energetic feelers in the environment. Is it safe or is it dangerous? And if we've had a lot of accumulation of unresolved trauma, it's probably on overdrive, like really picking up even more so. So it automatically does that for all of us, right? But it could be on overdrive as well. And then picking up things perceived that may not actually be a threat or danger or at that level of a threat or danger. And we can turn neuroception from an autonomic experience, which so much gratitude that it does that because it is going to do that automatically. But we can bring it into our conscious, intentional awareness to use within therapy, to use within our life by just getting that felt sense, dropping into that interoceptive awareness to use that with it, and getting this felt sense as we bring it into the present moment and go, okay, well, my nervous system does not feel safe right now, right? Or I feel up, or I feel disconnected, or I feel, right? And start describing the experience and starting to realize, maybe anchoring in the breath and as we move into slides that are coming up, other ways to bring in that interoceptive awareness and felt sense to start sending those signals consciously to our nervous system, to our brains, to our body that, okay, I am actually relatively safe in this moment. And you can use any skills or other things that you bring in, right? Anchoring in, but we start to drop into, and again, we can be gentle if this is difficult for our clients, but we start to build the capacity over time. And you can use any mindfulness, any skills. You can use CBT, DBT, ACT, whatever it is that you use as well, those top down, to start helping to connect to that interoceptive awareness which is the understanding and the dropping into internal sensations and cues, to drop into the body, to drop into the energy, even the energy field around the body, the subtle energies, and also being aware of the physiological states, such as heartbeat, respiration, temperature, hunger, and other body sensations. And this builds a container to be able to be with it. So you can come in gently and just for a little bit, come out. And we'll talk about a little bit of that titration. And we can build this over time. The ability to respond to and attend to those internal cues so we can start to be with them and build that capacity. And that plays a really huge role in healing and well-being and being able to process an EMDR therapy. So if you have someone in your trauma processing and maybe they're getting blocked a lot, or you're like, they don't have enough resources, this can be part of the resourcing so that the trauma processing and the bilateral stimulation and any other protocols that you're using within EMDR therapy can deepen the work and be successful and not bypass any of it either, because if there's that ability to be interceptively aware, we can really move those deeper experiences. And even the body sensations are often some of the most difficult to be with. And they often connect to early traumatic experiences, which can be most difficult to be with. So building this as a capacity, felt sense, having a felt sense, an experience of a felt sense is the awareness and the tuning in of body sensations and those subtle energies, even in the energy, right? Even outside of the body, around the body, in the body. It helps connect us to the experiences and the adaptive information. So by building this capacity to get a felt sense of, what is that felt sense of? And then building in maybe positive states. What do you notice when you do? Even recognizing, even reflecting back. Oh, I noticed something here. Like you felt it must have taken a lot of courage, even though you had a lot of fear. What did the courage feel like? You showed up, even though you were panicking, you were freaking out, right? You showed up. So we can even bring in just little states. I want you to bring the awareness to the courage. Yeah, let's honor and recognize the anxiety you had, but you also showed up. What is that felt sense of courage? Can you even feel it a little bit, even 5%, 2%, 10%? Can you give that a word, a color, something? Can you feel that somewhere in or around the body? And we start deepening the felt sense of experiences that connect us to adaptive information. Making sense of, then we can connect maybe the cortex, right? And some of that logic, and we can start to even make sense of and even bring that in. Can we debrief? Can we make sense of this? Can we use the brains? Can we use our intuition? Can we use our logic? Can we use our gut feelings? And can we figure something out? And take the time to do that. Talk about it, embody it, use all of these, interchange these throughout your therapy. Heart coherence, the harmonious alignment of heart, mind, body, emotions, and spirit. We want to foster and bring in stable heart rhythms. We know, again, the evidence base to support this in healing is really amazing and really growing, and it's being integrated more and more into therapies for the heart coherence. It reduces stress, anxiety. It improves emotion regulation. It enhances cognitive function. It boosts our immune system and improves our heart health. And it's all interrelated, that interconnectivity, the signals it sends. So let's do a little practice. A heart coherence exercise. And this is an invitation. You can observe if this doesn't feel right for you in this moment. You can come back to it, and you can also drop in with us. Whatever feels good for your body, honor your body, honor parts of you, whatever that experience is. And just find a comfortable space in your body. My dog just came in, so give him a blanket here. He's going to join us in our heart coherence. We'll get some dog energy, some dog love. He just sat down next to us. Beautiful. You can sit or lie wherever you're at, just finding a comfortable position. And just start to see if you can bring that awareness, that interoceptive awareness, and focus on your heart center in any way that feels good to you. You may take a conscious breath and just take that moment as your energy starts to settle, come towards your heart. You may place your hand or your hands on your heart, the center of your heart, right? Really this whole area. And just to help you focus and continue to bring your awareness there. And just start to take conscious breaths. And if that is possible, you can start to deepen the breath. You may try to inhale slowly for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then exhale for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do this through your nose, your mouth, whatever feels best for your body today. And just continue this rhythmic breathing. You can use the counting or let go of the counting, whatever feels better to you. Just finding a rhythm, a synchronization, if you can. Beautiful. Now take a moment and just cultivate any positive feelings that you can. Maybe you think of something that brings you joy, love, connection, gratitude, whatever it is. Maybe it's something else, and just see if you can connect that with your breath, with your awareness, with your body. And if that feels good, see if you can radiate that energy from your heart and extend it throughout your body. Using your breath, your awareness. If that feels good, extend it out. Extend it through your whole aura, through your being, through the room. To your pets. To the others who live and reside with you. To your neighborhood. And maybe even to the whole world, the universe, the cosmos, whatever feels right to you. Just stay in the moment for a little bit longer before returning back and just noticing Even if your experience wasn't a dropping in, just notice what you did experience and see if you can just be curious with that. That's all information. It's bringing you awareness. And just take a couple breaths. And remember, you can do this at any time. You can use this with clients or whatever setting you're in, for yourself, for others. And just coming back to our experience here together. And if you want to share in the chat anything that, and remember, all experiences are welcome, even naming like, I was totally distracted, I couldn't drop in, like it's, you're naming, you're naming for your parts, you're expressing for your parts. And if you can even find, okay, little awareness, curiosity with that, that's a beautiful thing. So opening the chat and just any expressions, they're all welcome, all welcome. Acceptance. Body and lips tingling and vibrating. Yeah, wow, yeah, good notice. More connected. The interruption, wondering thoughts. Thank you for naming that, Maria. Such a common. And no, two different times a day, different days, it could be different for us as well. So sometimes just accepting that and being with that can be such a beautiful practice. Calmness, deep peace, nervous system release. I wasn't able to drop in, but even the small sense of connection to gratitude, there you go. Just those little nuggets, those little blessings. It was hard to extend them. Yeah, just notice that. And you can, you know what? It could even be that parts of you are like, no, we need it. Stay here. That's okay. Yeah, so beautiful. Helped me get out of my head. Positive thought and gratitude was beautiful with my dog. Yeah, any pets, right? And maybe my dog invited your dog in. Or your cat. I saw the kitty, right? Sense of self, peace, gratitude, joy, laughter. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I know it's vulnerable to share, just a beautiful expression. And if I missed any of yours, I'm sorry, but just thank you so much for sharing all of your experience. I'm sure we can all relate to all of them. So let's look at the two-hand technique. I'm guessing, and many of you have maybe heard of this in the EMDR, but it's a somatic. And it's actually pretty easy to use in general. I've found that, 9 out of 10 of my clients can use this pretty effectively and really like it. Oh, digestive gurgling. Nervous system coming on. Yep, I love it. Grief. Right now, there's a lot of grief in the world. So I've noticed in my trainings that a lot of the time that we drop in and we use any kind of interceptive, grief is showing up. And I'm like, of course it is. I just felt chills. I feel emotion. Yeah. So if you feel that, like, just really be tender with yourself. Like, I feel like that, I mean, not that it couldn't come up anytime, but I feel like it's really there right now for so many of us. So I just want to name that. I went into the universe and saw the planets. Yeah, and be extra tender. Yeah, my son passed away. It's very traumatic. Be extra tender with yourself. So much love. And I'm going to extend self energy and love for all of your experiences. These beautiful, and they are beautiful, transformative experiences of grief. And this two-hand technique can be really beautiful with all of these things too. We can use this with, like, if we have polarized experiences internally or struggles, ambivalence about making a choice, like, I want to move, I don't want to move, or I want to change a job, I don't want to change a job, right? Like anything. I love my partner, I hate my partner, like all these different kind of ambivalence, polarized experiences that we all have. Like part of me wants to do that, part of me doesn't, right? Negative or positive, past versus present view of self or others or experiences. And you use the hands and you put the energies, the somatic experience, right? Like if you want to move, part of you wants to move, or half of you wants to move, the other half doesn't, right? For example, and then putting in that energy. Like, what if you put the energy, and you could have the client or yourself choose what hand? That makes it even more meaningful. Like, just select one of your hands and put the energy of the part or parts of you that want to move, or the energy that wants to move, or move forward, or do whatever it is. And then put the energy or the parts of you in the other hand that don't want to, right? And then get a felt sense. Drop in, like, what does this hand, and this externalizes it and takes it into our hands so it's more manageable, right? Because sometimes it can be overwhelming to feel it all in our body, and this can make it more manageable, more tangible. But then we can get a felt sense of it, and we can practice that awareness and, like, what does this hand feel like? Oh, this one feels really heavy, or this feels that, and get like a sense and work it. And if the client can hold that, you could add bilateral stimulation to that just to get information, just short sets, not long sets. We're not doing a full on, we're not floating back. We're just getting the sense, and we're deepening the experience of being able to hold the experiences. And you don't have to add that either. You can just do the somatic awareness, felt sense, interoceptive awareness, maybe even that neuroception of, like, how do you feel in this moment when you hold those energies, right? Can your nervous system, can you take a breath, the breath awareness, the heart coherence? You could practice all those things with this. Let your mind observe with curiosity. And you can come back to this to remind yourself, or print this out if you want to use this in any way with yourself or others. And then you just slowly, you can go back and forth. So you can also use the titration in the experience. So when we have hyperarousal and we feel like a lot is coming on, or for our clients, we want to work slowly and gently to integrate. And we want to work incrementally to build that capacity that I've been talking about for that mindful awareness of sensations. Take as long, work at the client's pace. Take as long as needed. The slow is the fast in trauma therapy. That is the effective, right? So you just bring your nervous system into that and hold that space and just incrementally work towards slowly, gently. If we're working with hypoarousal, like more shutdown states, depressed states, numb states, dissociated states, shame states, right? Explore the numbness, or whatever other words, right, that would use your client's words whenever. I'm just using words for our learning, but if your client has a different, like, I feel disconnected, I feel robotic, I feel numb, I feel depressed, use their words so it's more meaningful. And then oscillate, titrate, pendulate, Peter Levine's work, between the trauma symptom, even if you go in for 2 seconds, right? 5 seconds, you can build that, right? And then go back to something more positive or neutral and help ground, or into your skill, or whatever it is. And little by little, you go in, and then eventually the client can be there a little longer. And that could build your capacity to eventually be able to do full on trauma processing. So that could be a resourcing to build in powerfully, and it's very healing. So remember, somatic techniques can help reduce body memories, flashbacks, and dissociation. So they're super powerful in resourcing, in processing, in any stage or phase, any of the 8 EMDR phases, really. You can bring them in all phases. Trauma stories are held in the physical, energetic body. These stories shape our bodies, and you may see it in the language of the body, or the client may feel it in the body, in the tension, and the way we live, connect, and love in the world. Protective parts may block us from the body's sensations and somatic awareness because they're trying to help. It's like, it feels like too much. So it's a protection. And they're trying to prevent it from coming up. So we may need to slowly work with that in order to realize it's safe enough in this moment to actually be with it, to turn towards it slowly, because they are preventing the wounds and vulnerabilities from coming up. So we build that conscious neuroception and interceptive awareness with patients. And we just keep coming back again and again. And we model it, we mirror it. And we can use attachment strategies really beautifully with that too, through that modeling. So we integrate core somatic practices. A good question, this comes from Susan McConnell's work, and she is a somatic IFS therapist, but I love this question, right? Is there anywhere in your body that could benefit from your compassion and attention? What a beautiful question, right? And we can even ask ourselves that, right? And then bring that into whatever space. And then some core somatic experiences, any type, just conscious breathing, right? You don't even have to alter it, but any breath work, of course, but just being conscious of our breath, because breath is autonomic as well. Bring in that consciousness, the heart coherence we just did, any type of breathing exercises, awareness of and in the body, also around the body. Receiving gentle touch, like maybe even in the hands, the face. And the client can do that, right? Self-havening. I'm guessing Ariel might do that today. If not, like self-havening techniques, just really soft touch, hug, hands on the heart. Encourage body and energy work in between sessions. Paired muscle relaxation, body scans, other similar techniques. So when we say embodiment, what does that mean? I mean, in a nutshell, right? Embodiment is about fully feeling and living in your body in the present moment. It's about bringing it present moment. Oh, I got a thumbs. I don't know how I did that. If I hit something or not. Thumbs up, embodiment. Body in the present moment. So we're bringing that present moment awareness in as much as we can. What's the science of this in a nutshell? In a shorter presentation, I could probably go on forever in so many of these things, but really giving you all these introductions and helping you integrate this in your already existing work, the integration of sensory feedback implicitly expressed in the posture, facial expressions, gestures, tone of voice, movement patterns, emotions, and behaviors. So we bring in as well in any somatic experience and anytime if we're moving and breathing, the exerception, right? That what you perceive in the external world through the 5 senses. We can take in the 5 senses, and you probably already have existing tools that you do that using the 5 senses and bringing that in. Then interioception, the sensing and interpreting your body's internal states, hunger, thirst, pain, heart rate, any other sensations and body experiences, and physiological body experiences, neurobiological, nervous system. Proprioception, awareness of the body's position, movement, orientation in space through feedback, through your muscles, your joints, and connective tissues. And I'll invite you in just to move in any way and just notice these things, right? Or look around your environment, notice where you're at, notice your body, the movement, what's happening in any way that feels okay to you. It's an invitation. It's always an invitation. No forcing, just anything that feels good. Yeah, I can see people moving in and out, right? Of states of openness, contraction, whatever that is. There's no right or wrong, right? But that we're paying attention to these things. But it even could be that like our shoulders are up. And what is it like with our clients to just bring the shoulders down? What do we notice? What is it like to open the hands? What's it like to put the hand on the heart? Right? And so we can do really simple things too. What's it like to soften your eyes? What's it like to breathe? Just bring your consciousness to the breath and work with those in whatever way, right? So we can even start really gentle and then moving into more somatic experiences, even into movement, posture, breath, the mind-body awareness. Mind-body awareness. Regulation. We said titration, coming in and out, small increment amounts, tracking sensations, facilitating gentle release, sequencing, using the breath, using intentional conscious breath and movement. And you can work from the core out to the peripheral, right? So we can breathe into our core for grounding and then work our body from the core. And think of the core, the seat, the legs as grounding. So you can start there if there's like a needed sense of grounding, and then work out from, maybe opening the chest, closing arms. And again, you can start really small, but these expansive states can really help us in the contraction to move in and out and titrate through these experiences and the sequencing of the body where the trauma is stored. These facial expressions, maybe even really gentle if you're working in the cervical, the body. And then the somatic repatterning, explore using slow conscious movement and breath to help complete and release. And we can do this through, if you're doing EMDR therapy, invite this in. And I have questions and things in these slides to help that. So I have the step-by-step embodiment for you. And due to time, I'm going to leave this here for you, but this would be a printout you can use as a protocol to step-by-step help your clients embody. And everything we've talked about with some of the language and allowing, you could connect and talk to your clients this way. You can do that so that you have this protocol, like I said, print it out, keep it with you, look at it, try it yourself, play around with it as a technique to use with yourself and with clients or patients or wherever you're coming from, if you're in body work and whatever that is, in EMDR work, in resourcing. And of course, you can use pieces of this during trauma processing, as well as bringing in somatic interweaves in the processing, as well as in any phase of EMDR, in the resourcing, right? So these are, and you could just do these as standalone to build that capacity. If this sensation could move, how would it move? How would it feel? If there was a sound or color or words for the sensation, what would they be? You could also have draw, right? Take in things concretely. Even saying things is a somatic, the tone, right? The tone, the vibration of the words, or to be able to say that, or to move the energy in the throat chakra and through those experiences. Place your hands on the sensation or your awareness, or breathe in or with it. Allow the sensation to come over your whole body and be curious, be compassionate, see what happens. What do you notice? Intentionally move your arms, your legs, your feet, those stuck energies, allowing them to come out, right? And often slowly, consciously is what will release and help release that. Consciously and slowly engage those legs, right? As if you are going to move or walk or run, but do it slow with a conscious awareness and hold that space. What do you notice as you do that? Allow anything to come up and through. Scrunch your face, move your jaw, your tongue, your lips, your forehead, your eyes, your, massage, touch gently. And what do these help? They help the belts of tension within the body coming from William Reek's work. These patterns that we hold, and incidentally, look at they align with the chakras, right? So these images, the ocular, the oral, the cervical, thoracic, diaphragmic, abdominal, pelvic, and then, really visual, right? Take that in, like all the tension that gets stuck in these different areas of the body and how they correlate. And that we're moving those energies. And while we're processing, while we're resourcing, while we're doing body scan, while we're embodying the positive cognition, anything that we're doing in the EMDR therapy, right? How do we work with these as they show up in different ways? They show up through the thoughts, the beliefs, the body sensations, the emotions, the symptoms, the behaviors, the urges, the memories. And then looking at those areas, like the ocular often has a sensory overwhelm. That's what creates some of the tension. So we're working gently and slowly with a sense of overwhelm and how that, right, comes in often in that area. And it's not only that, but that's a common. The oral is commonly suppressed anger and difficulty expressing ourselves. So we might be working on those things and processing those things. And we may add in the conscious awareness, moving, holding, loving. The cervical neck, stiff neck, resistance to change, and fears of intimacy are very common. And fear. The chest, right? The heart center, the thoracic, right? The tightness in the chest. How often do we get that? Even in the processing, oh, my chest feels tight, or it feels heavy, or my breath is going shallow, my shoulders are hunched over. Often are unexpressed grief, sadness, or difficulty letting go. The diaphragm, restricted breathing, lungs, hard to breathe, tight diaphragm, suppressed angers and feelings of suffocation. Abdominal, holding tension in the belly area, could be fears of vulnerability, difficulty trusting others. Pelvis, tightness in the hips, buttocks, legs, ungroundedness. So then you can work like, well, what techniques do I want to help work, resource, or help, or what maybe interweaves do I want to bring in during processing, or when we're embodying positive cognitions, or we're checking through the body scan, or we're integrating the work. And these might show up, and you can talk about them too, and then start expressing them, working with them. The client can't find or be with body sensations. So this is one of those issues where you're like, okay, I'm doing EMDR. I'm at whatever phase with my client or myself, or right. And, or I'm doing somatic work, or I'm doing any other kind of work. Right. But my clients can't be with certain body sensations, or maybe certain areas of the body are blocked, right? Like the client can go in the heart, but can't go like below the heart. It doesn't feel safe. And so do honor that, right? do honor and respect that and go really slow when that happens. There's protection there. It doesn't mean don't ever go there. It means go there with the resources, build that in, be gentle, be patient, use all these things we're talking about to just gently, and use titration, bring things into just a little bit to build that capacity. And over time, bring in that awareness to the body or to that area, whatever it is. It gets easier when blocking parts are more trusting. So if there are big blocks, you might want to work with parts, or if you're not doing parts work, just build trust. You may need to build more trust in the therapeutic relationship, and also with the person, building more trust in themselves. Identify parts that block the body and how they block the body. And you can go back to these states, working through these. How are they? Where in your body is it stuck? Even if you can't go there, do you know where? And maybe we won't go there. Let's start somewhere else first. And we can come in really slowly. Now versus then. Now versus then you needed that protection. You needed to block that. What is different now? And take the time to really explore that, work with that. If you're familiar with Jim Knight's blocking beliefs, recognize blocking beliefs that come and process those through. And if any of you need that protocol, I have it really pretty easily, and you can email me, put my email at the end. That's a really beautiful way to work with this as well. And then, of course, bring in that somatic. Respect that numbness and depersonalization, respect them as a protection from pain, emotional, physical, any kind of pain. So just work slowly and gently. It's not to ignore it. It's to take the time, go at the client's pace, attune, build the resources. And also always, acknowledge and recognize medical issues that may desensitize the body, and explore that, because there are medical issues that may do that too. It's not always parts, it's not always trauma. So really looking from these different things and exploring that with your client, using your client's words and experiences. So I know it was a lot of information, and so much love to all.